What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel and welcome back to your video. Today I'll be taking a look at the intros for the 2025 Grand Park 165 at the Chicago Street Course. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain comes in this weekend at Chicago looking for some momentum, as there's been a couple bad races as of recently for Ross Chastain. Luckily, Ross has been pretty solid on road courses in the past, and of course picked up his first career win at a road course at Circuit Americas a couple years ago. He'll look to have a potential to pick up a second win in 2025 and look to build some momentum and have a really good run this weekend in the streets of Chicago. Up next up, the 2-car for Team Penske. This will once again be driven by Austin Cindric. After winning Stage 1 at Atlanta Motor Speedway, unfortunately Austin Cindric got caught up in the massive pileup that took him out of the event. Austin Cindric is a pretty solid road course racer. He's looking for his first road course win in the NASCAR Cup Series, but he shows some decent speed in the early portion in Mexico. He looks to have a really good run this weekend at Chicago and looks to pick up his second win in 2025 this weekend in the streets. Up next up, the 3-car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon's had some decent speed over the course of the last month or so, and I feel like that this 3-car is showing a little bit more than even Kyle Busch has shown in the last couple weeks. He is looking for a really solid run this weekend in Chicago. I don't have the most confidence in him, though, considering Austin Dillon isn't the best road course racer in the field. I think he's got an outside chance maybe at a top 25. That's about it. I don't expect Austin Dillon to be a major factor this weekend at Chicago. Up next up with the 4-car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Noah Gragson. Noah Gragson has had a really bad season so far in 2025, and his bad season continued at Atlanta Motor Speedway after getting caught up in the massive pileup that happened down the back straightaway. And I don't have confidence in Noah Gragson going into the weekend. Noah Gragson has not been fast on the road courses so far this year and has not had the pace and speed to contend on a week-by-week basis. It might be a struggle. Maybe Noah will catch some luck and have a good run at Chicago. Up next up, the 5-car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Kyle Larson. After being the fastest car early in the season, the last 4 or 5 weeks for Larson have not been as strong. But Kyle Larson was really fast in the race last year here before getting caught up in a crash running into the tire barriers. Larson's a really good road course racer, has like 6 or 7 career wins on these types of tracks. He's looking for his first ever street course win. I think he's going to be fast, and I think Larson will have a pretty good car this weekend at Chicago. Up next up, the 6-car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. This 6 team has been building a lot more momentum over the course of the last 4 or 5 races, as Brad Keselowski has 4 top 10s in the last 6 events. Brad is looking for another really good run. I don't have the most confidence in Brad because he hasn't been as good at road courses in the next-gen era. He might end a really good momentum with a not good run this weekend, but I think Brad may be able to at least get a top 25 this weekend at Chicago. Up next up, the 7-car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley had a lot of flashes at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but unfortunately got caught up in a crash and incident that took him out of contention for the victory. Justin almost won this race in 2023 against Shane Van Gisbergen, but finished inevitably in 2nd position. I think he's going to have an okay run. The Spire cars have been decent on these types of tracks. We'll see what Justin Haley can do, and we'll see if he can have a really good run this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 8-car for Richard Childress Racing. This will once again be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch did not have the best run at Atlanta Motor Speedway. He ran outside the top 20 most of the day, and I believe finished 21st or 22nd in the event. Kyle's looking for a race that could bounce back at. I think this weekend at Chicago, I think he could be a pretty big factor for a really good run. I think he's going to have some good speed this weekend. The RCR road course program has been really strong. I think he's going to have a really good opportunity for a great run. I think he'll be fast. We'll see what he can do. We'll see if Kyle Busch can be a factor for the win this weekend at Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 9-car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott is coming off of winning the most recent NASCAR Cup Series race at Atlanta Motor Speedway, his first Cup win since Texas in 2024. Chase Elliott I expect to be a major factor. His speed on the road courses this year has been really good. He had a good car on the long run at COTA, and he finished in 3rd at Mexico City. I think he will be a factor for a pretty good run this weekend at Chicago. I think he'll have top 5 speed, could be a potential threat for the victory this weekend, and maybe could go back to back. Up next up, the 10-car for Kaulig Racing. This will once again be driven by Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon's had some okay speed so far this year and finally picked up his first top 10 finish of 2025. Ty Dillon's had a little more speed and results have shown so far this year, but has also had a lot of bad luck. He'll be looking for a really good run this weekend at Chicago. He's got a couple good teammates that'll be able to give him some good pointers. We'll see what Ty Dillon can do this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin unfortunately got caught up in the massive crash and pile that happened down the back straightaway, which he kind of started, unfortunately. And coming into this weekend, I don't expect things to get better. Denny Hamlin has not been good in next-gen road course racing. He has one of the worst average finishes in the field, and Hamlin just hasn't figured it out in the next-gen car at these types of tracks. I think Hamlin's going to unfortunately struggle. I don't think he's going to have the pace and speed, and sadly won't be a major factor for the win and victory. Up next up, the 12th car for Team Penske. This is once going to be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney's coming off of getting caught up in the massive crash and incident, and it's a shame because Ryan Blaney had a really good run at Pocono a couple weeks ago. Ryan Blaney's an interesting case. He's had a lot of speed at times, but hasn't had the results to show for it. But I'm not too confident in him going into this weekend because Ryan Blaney has not been that good at road course racing. He's been alright, but he hasn't been exceptional. I do not expect Ryan Blaney to be a factor this weekend in Chicago. Up next up, the 13 car for Kaulig Racing. Yes, Kaulig Racing is going to run a third part-time entry this weekend at Chicago, and Will Brown is going to be the driver who will make his first Cup Series start of the season. Despite the fact that Will Brown's only made one prior start in Cup, he's already going this weekend as potentially one of the favorites for the win because of his prior street course experience racing in supercars. I think Will Brown is going to be a pretty big factor for the win. Would not shock me or surprise me if Will Brown picks up his first career NASCAR Cup Series win at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 15 car for Rick Ware Racing. There was supposed to be a potential fourth car for Cam Waters to drive this weekend at Chicago. This was supposed to be the drive, right? I believe he's going to drive, but unfortunately that deal's fallen through. So this is the one that we don't expect to be showing up this weekend. It'd been really cool to see Cam Waters get behind the wheel, but as of now, Cam Waters will not be running the NASCAR Cup Series race this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 16 car for Kaulig Racing. This one's going to be driven by AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger going this weekend is one of the favorites to pick up the win. AJ has been really good at the couple street course races that we've ran in Chicago, and AJ is one of the best road course racers in the field. I know he's a little bit inconsistent at Mexico, but he had good speed at COTA before electrical issues came into play, and I think this 16 team is going to have a good teammate to work with as well. We'll see what Allmendinger can do. He looks to get his first Cup Series win since Charlotte Roval in 2023. Up next up, the 17 car for RFK Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher had a solid top 10 run this past weekend at Atlanta, and he's building some momentum and getting some top 10 and top 15 speed weekly. And coming this weekend, you can bet he's probably going to be a top 10 threat, as he only had one finish outside the top 10 in next-gen super speedway racing. It's been super impressive to watch him at super speedways. He's probably going to be fast, and I think will have a really strong and good run this weekend at Chicago. Up next on the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe did not have the best run this past weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but he does have some momentum after the race we ran at Pocono. Now, unfortunately, last time we ran here at Chicago, he took out the favorite twin, Shane Van Gisbergen, who was easily probably going to win that race in the rain. I think Briscoe will have some good speed. The Joe Gibbs Racing cars have shown some good speed at road courses. We'll see what Briscoe can do. We'll see if he can be a factor this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell and this 20 team have been super inconsistent over the course of the last few months, but I think Bell will be a factor. Bell's been really good in the first two street course races that have happened here, and I think Bell's one of the best road course racers in the field. It's going to be tough to beat Shane Van Gisbergen in this race, but if there's anyone that might be able to have a chance and opportunity outside of Chase Elliott to challenge him, I think Christopher Bell could be that guy that could be a factor. Up next up, the 21 car for the Wood Brothers. This is once going to be driven by Josh Berry. Josh Berry is not objectively the best road course racer in the field, but he did show okay speed at Mexico before getting caught up in some incidents in the race. I think Berry might be a contender for a top 20 this weekend, but that's about it. The 21 car has been a little better than when he drove the number 4 for Stewart-Haas Racing here, but I don't think Berry will be a major factor this weekend at Chicago. Up next up, the 22 car for Team Penske. This is once going to be driven by Joey Logano. Joey Logano is looking for some bounce backs right now. This 22 team just doesn't have a lot of momentum at the moment. They're either way off the pace or they're getting caught up in crashes and incidents. They don't have consistency, and Logano have confidence in. Logano just doesn't run well at road courses in the next-gen era right now, and I don't think Logano is going to be a factor in any way, shape, or form. Maybe he could prove me wrong and run well, but like I said, I don't expect much from him this weekend at Chicago. Up next up the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This one's going to be driven by Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace the last couple weeks has not been good for him. After some good runs prior to the race at Pocono, he had the brake issues, and then of course he had issues at Atlanta where he finished outside the top 20. He's looking for a bounce back run. He had some good speed last year here, so I think he could be an outside factor for potential top 5 this weekend at Chicago. Up next up with the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by William Byron. William Byron did not have a great run, unfortunately, this past weekend at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but I think Byron will be coming this weekend looking for a bounce-back run, and this could be an opportunity for him. William Byron is a pretty good road course racer, was really fast in the races circuit of the Americas, and pretty good speed, if I remember correctly, last time we were here last year. I think Byron has a good chance and could have a decent opportunity for a good run at Chicago. Up next up at the 33 car for Richard Childress Racing. Yes, this team is back this weekend at Chicago, and Austin Dillon is going to be doing double duty as, of course, he runs full-time in the NASCAR Cup Xfinity Series. Austin Dillon is a decent road course racer, and Xfinity competition will be a factor for a top 5 for sure. Not expecting much from him this weekend, though, on the Cup side because the R&D car doesn't always run that well, but good to see him back in the NASCAR Cup Series. Up next up at the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen could be a sneaky sleeper pick for this weekend at Chicago, considering Todd Gillen, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated road course racers in the NASCAR Cup field. I think he's going to have a pretty good car this weekend for maybe a top 15 run. I think Front Row is going to try to bring the pace and speed. We'll see what Todd Gillen can do, and we'll see if he can be a factor for a potential great run this weekend at Chicago. Up next up at the 35 car for 2311 Racing. This one's going to be driven by Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst has had an abysmal season so far in 2025. There's just no momentum for the 35 team currently at the moment. They need some good luck to go their way, and like I said, there's just nothing going the way of the 35 team at the moment. He did show good speed at Mexico. I'll give him credit for that, but outside of that, it's been a bad season for Herbst. He looks to maybe turn it around this weekend at Chicago. Up next up the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Zane Smith. Zane Smith so far this year has been the strongest Front Row Motorsports driver on pace. He has had some really good speed this year. He has shown potential to be up front a lot more consistently and is just outside the top 20 in the points. Zane's also not a bad road racer. I could see him having maybe a top 15 run at the streets of Chicago. Up next up with the 41 car for the Haas factory team. This one's going to be driven by Cole Custer. Cole Custer and his 41 team have had some really good speed the last 2 weeks. He had a top 10 run early in the race at Pocono, and remember, he finished in the top 10 at the race in Mexico. He'll be a threat for a top 10 run, in my opinion. I think he could have one of his best runs of the season. Could be clear pick for a good run. Won the Xfinity race here back in 23. I think he'll be really solid this weekend at Chicago. Up next up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This one's going to be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. This 42 team is building a lot of momentum. John Hunter's having a career year in the NASCAR Cup Series. Up to this point, this team has been a lot quicker. They've been doing a really, really good job. I think John Hunter could have a decent run this weekend. Was pretty good here in the Xfinity Series a couple years ago. We'll see what he can do this weekend in the streets of Chicago. Up next up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This one's going to be driven by Eric Jones. Eric Jones had a solid top 5 run this past weekend at Atlanta. This is the best season Eric Jones has had since 2022. He has been doing really good this year so far in that 43 car, and that 43 team's been overachieving to the point where Eric Jones, I believe, is in the top 20 in the points. He looks for a really, really good run this weekend. We'll see what Eric Jones can do in the 43 car at Chicago. Up next up with the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This one's going to be driven by Tyler Reddick. Now, usually going into this weekend of road courses, Tyler Reddick is someone who I think could be a factor, but I'm a little concerned about Reddick. Reddick was not very fast at Mexico and was really concerning. Now, if they bring that pace and speed, I'm not too concerned then. I think it might just be an anomaly because he was really good at COTA. We'll see if this team can bring the momentum, but the 45 team has just been a little bit off at the road courses as of late. He'll look to turn it around and have a great run this weekend at Chicago. Up next up with the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. just got a top 10 run this past weekend at Atlanta and is trying to build some momentum back after some bad stretch of races as of late. Stenhouse, I don't expect much though because he ain't the best road course racer in the field. I think a top 30 is doable for him, but that's about it at this point. I don't think he's going to be a major contender for the victory. He'll look to have a good run, but I don't have the most confidence he'll be a major factor. I think it's going to be a little bit of a rough week for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up at the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman's coming off having a really strong top 5 finish in 3rd place at Atlanta Motor Speedway and comes in this weekend as the defending winner at this racetrack. Bowman's looking for a really, really good run, looking to get his first Cup win of the season. Maybe he goes back-to-back and gets his first ever back-to-back runs at this track, getting victory. Who knows at this point, but I do think Bowman will be a factor, and I think we'll have a really good chance and opportunity to contend for a win this weekend at the Chicago Street Course of how good he's been here. Up next up with the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. This one's going to be driven by Cody Ware. Cody Ware had a solid top 15 finish at Atlanta Motor Speedway, but outside of that, it's been a rough year for Cody Ware. He is looking for a really good run this weekend at Chicago, but I don't expect much. His road course pace isn't that impressive, and I think it's going to be a rough weekend for the Rick Ware Racing team. I don't expect much. I think Cody Ware will not have the pace and speed and will sadly struggle this weekend in the streets of Chicago. Up next up with the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs is looking for a really good run this weekend at Chicago, and I think Ty will be a factor. Ty's road course speed has been very, very good. Last race in Mexico, he was one of the few guys that can keep up with Shane Van Gisbergen all day. And I think Gibbs will have a really, really good car. Plus, he was really good last year here at this track. I think they're going to bring the pace and speed. I think Ty Gibbs will be a really big factor for a potential victory this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 60 car for RFK Racing. This one's going to be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece is looking for a really, really good run this weekend. He had a pretty okay run this past weekend at Atlanta, finished inside the top 15. And I think Preece has been having generally is a career year up to this point. Not sure how I feel. He qualified very, very well at Mexico, ran up front quite a bit of the event. Didn't have the overall pace to contend for the win, but I think he could have an alright performance this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 66 car for Garage 66. Yes, this team will be back this weekend in the streets of Chicago with Josh Bilicki behind the wheel. We have seen Casey Mears drive this car. We've seen Chandler Smith. We also almost saw Mike Walsh get behind the wheel of this car. But Bilicki's a good road course racer, finishing the top 10 this past weekend in the truck race at Lime Rock. I think he could have a decent run. We'll see what Josh Bilicki can do with Garage 66 this weekend at the track of Chicago. Up next up, the 67 car for 23XI Racing. The 67 is back this weekend with Corey Heim as Heim makes his 3rd Cup start of the year. Corey Heim won the Truck Series race at Lime Rock, so he could be an outside sleeper pick for a potential win. I would not be shocked if he comes in this weekend and challenges Shane Van Gisbergen because he's been so good at the road courses and trucks, has won the last 3 straight road course races. He should be full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series right now, but he's been doing a really, really good job. Good to see Heim back behind the wheel. I think he'll be really, really good this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. Up next up, the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Michael McDowell. McDowell did not have the best run this past weekend at Atlanta, but luckily we're going to a type of track where I do expect him to be very, very good. McDowell has been exceptional at the road courses. He's been very, very good. Ran top 5 at Mexico. I think he's going to have a really fast car. I think the 71 team is going to bring the pace and speed. I think Michael McDowell will be a pretty big factor for a potential win and victory this weekend at the Chicago Street Course with Spire Motorsports. Up next, I'm at the 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This is once going to be driven by Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar was a bat out of hell early in the race at Atlanta, but we go to Chicago, and I'm not sure about Hocevar being a factor. Hocevar, I thought, would be much more factor at Mexico. Didn't show anything in Mexico City race, so I'm a little concerned about Hocevar being a pretty big factor for a potential win this weekend. I think he could have an okay run if he can survive the carnage and incidents, but I don't think much will come from that. I think it'll be a little bit of struggle for him to be a big threat. We'll see what Hocevar can do, though, this weekend at the Chicago Street Course with Spire. Up next, up at the 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports. This will be driven by Catherine Legelmaker, first NASCAR Cup Series road course start of 2025. Catherine, I think, will have one of her best runs in Cup. Actually, second road course race, because she ran Mexico. I think Catherine will be pretty good for her standards. I think Live Fast will show some decent speed. They got a top 20 with BJ. I think Catherine's a much better road course racer than she is an oval driver. She got a top 30 finish, I believe, or almost got a top 30 at Mexico. I think she'll have one of her better runs with experience on street courses like this. I think she could have an okay run this weekend at Chicago. Up next up at the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing. This one's going to be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen. Shane Van Gisbergen will be doing double duty this weekend as he'll be running the Xfinity Series race in the number 9 car for Junior Motorsports, going up against Connor Zolch and maybe Brock Feeney as well. He's the favorite to win both the Cup race and the Xfinity race. He dominated this race in 2023 in Cup, won the race here. Actually didn't dominate, but he got the charge late, got up front and won. And then 24 dominated the Xfinity race and picked up that win. And he looks to pick up a second win in 2025 as he won the race at Mexico. I expect him to contend for the pole, and I do expect Shane Van Gisbergen to be the favorite to go to victory. He's going to be fast, and I think he'll be very, very strong this weekend at the Chicago Street Course. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This one's going to be driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez is needing to have some good runs right now. This 99 team just doesn't have it at the moment on the consistency factor. And with the uncertainty of Daniel Suarez, there's unknown if Suarez is going to be back with Trackhouse Racing next year. I'm leaning toward there's a chance he may not come back to the program. But if he can run really well at Chicago and maybe get the victory, that might change my mind and a lot of other people's minds. I'm leaning toward right now this being the last year for Suarez. He needs to have some good runs right now. A run like this needs to happen. We'll see if he can do really well this weekend at Chicago and can turn the corner. So that is going to be it for the intros video for the 2025 Grant Park 165 at the Chicago Street Course. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What are thoughts on the Chicago Street Course interest? Send your thoughts in the comments, and let me know who you think's the early pick to win the Cup Series race at Chicago. Let me know your picks in the comments below for that front. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to have a NASCAR news video discussing news over the course of the last couple days. And then, of course, we are also going to have the Xfinity race picks for the Loop 110. And then on Thursday, we'll have Cup race picks for the Grant Park 165. Along with, of course, we will have the paint scheme video for that. And then Friday, a NASCAR news video. And Saturday and Sunday, we'll have reactions to Xfinity and Cup from Chicago. We got content coming on people like Hailie Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Ryan Preece, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Cletus Safran, Dodge, Ram, Connor Zilch, Junior Motorsports, Carson, Quaffle, Sam Ayers, Sheldon Creed. All the good stuff will be dropping on the channel in the coming days and weeks. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, buddy.